Hey, so just putting together a quick video to show you how we helped another company in the professional services space to add 1 million in new revenue within a 12-month period. So I'm going to make this video as quick as possible, so I'll go straight into it. A little bit about the problem that business faced. They had an over reliance on networking and events to generate new leads, and there was no prospecting being done by the sales team. This meant that their revenue was quite lumpy. It meant that one month they might get 4 or 5 big deals in, then another month they'd get nothing. And that just meant that it was really difficult for the organization to forecast and look to scale because they didn't know what they were going to have when. And they had a habit of hiring new salespeople, in inverted commas, that weren't actually salespeople. And they just hired people because they were coming from senior roles in other organizations, and they would normally have a few different contacts that they would want to utilize. And they continually do this as a business, which meant they were left with a huge staff cost and an underperforming sales team because this wasn't actually a sales team at all, essentially. And that meant that these people didn't really know how to sell. And once they'd exhausted their black book of contacts, they were left with not very much. So they were left with a process that was broken, essentially. There was no clear discovery undertaken during the sales process, which meant that it was very difficult for them to tailor their solution to the prospect's problem, and therefore it was very difficult for them to close deals going forward. On top of that, the CRM was never updated, so deals weren't being tracked, and as mentioned, it was really difficult for the organization to forecast and therefore scale going forward. A couple of solutions that they did try before us. So, as mentioned, they did try and hire people from senior positions in other organizations, and that just ultimately left them with a huge staff cost and an underperforming team. They did also try and use a lead gen agency, but the agency didn't know the space at all and would often provide unqualified leads. All these leads were kind of people that weren't necessarily interested in the organization, but actually just kind of responded to an email. And on top of that, even when they did get a qualified lead come through that was potentially interested, they weren't well handled by the sales team, and it led to a lot of lost revenue as a result. So a little bit about what we did, and I'll go through this really quickly. So we mentioned, we implemented our 4 phase process, and it is actually a lot kind of more detailed than this, but I want to keep this video definitely under 4 minutes, hopefully under 3. We'll see how we go. But essentially, the 4 main key points of the process were: one, leveraging case studies. So we got some case studies to get key results from successful customer stories. We then built a targeted outbound campaign that leveraged these case studies to provide qualified leads with people that were actually interested in the service. We then coached the sales team, which enabled them to then kind of actually handle these leads and build a sales process that enabled the sales team to deal with these leads effectively and actually close business for the organization. And on top of this, we also coached them on LinkedIn, which not only did we coach them at a company level in terms of the marketing team, but we also encouraged the sales team to utilize social selling, which added another kind of lead generation source for the organization. So, as mentioned, didn't quite keep it under 3 minutes. There was a lot more to the process than this, but if you're interested in learning more, feel free to reach out to me and we can look at how we can implement our 4 phase process in detail for your organization. Hopefully, hear from you soon.